real icon and benefactor in Larry Baum yesterday afternoon, and we certainly want to recognize everything that Larry did to bless this community with leadership, with enthusiasm, with energy, and with his generosity. It will truly be missed. So thoughts and prayers with the family. Moment of silence, please. Amen. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today. Please bless us with the memory of and spirit of Larry Baum as we too try to serve this community in the best fashion possible. Amen.
And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. For purposes of attendance, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Halton.
Present.
Campbell.
Here.
Doster.
Present.
Getty. Here. Jackson.
Here.
Smelker.
Here.
Tunison.
Here.
Hatfield.
Here.
Approval of written agenda. At this time, any member of the board or public may ask for an item to be removed from the consent agenda and placed under items for consideration. Yes, sir.
Could you please place E and G both under items for consideration?
Items E and items
Development.
G. Items E and G from the consent agenda are now moved for items to consideration. Any additional requests? Does any commissioner wish to change the agenda additionally? Hearing no such request, the agenda is approved as amended. Reports from state and county officers. Do we have any state and county officers who wish to deliver an update or report to the board? Hearing no such request, limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Good morning, Joel Rutland Township. One thing I'd like to say, I didn't say it last week because I was a little torqued over Gina coming up here and giving us her line of crap. I would like to second what Sharon Zabrowski said at last week's meeting. Personally, I think that you're opening up a Pandora's box by putting anything to this body on the Second Amendment. I don't believe this body has anything to do with it, and I think that it would open up a can of worms in the future for this body in one direction or another to be able to think that they have a say over an amendment to the Constitution. That said, one amendment that I do take very seriously is the First Amendment. A law that I take very seriously is the Open Meetings Act. The Health Department not permitting one of Berry County's own to speak at the last meeting is, as far as I'm concerned, egregious and reprehensible. And I've heard several excuses along the lines of, well, all he had to do was raise his hand. If you guys remember, they amended the rules for public comment so that someone would be removed for breach of the peace if they even clapped. There was no room for anyone to raise their hand at that meeting without fear of some sort of repercussion. And when someone drives all the way from Berry County to Eaton County to show up to a meeting to be able to speak, they have to be heard. So, additionally, I'd also like to mention that there were several things that Gina said, both during her comment and after the meeting, that were absolutely wrong. Wrong morally, wrong ethically, and just plain incorrect. And I'll set the record straight on that when I have time. But just for now, Colette Scrimgeour is a liar and Gina Johnson is a liar. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Good morning. Gary White, dedicated Berry County resident, dedicated family man, dedicated retired Berry County business owner.
dedicated Republican precinct delegate serving Castleton Township residents with two of the many goals of smaller government and less taxes. I find in my life experiences that people, when wanting to sway a decision, will use words like dedicated and or service, all the while ignoring adopted policy that upholds the best interest of, in your elected official's capacity, the people, the taxpayers of Barry County. Structure put in place to remove chaos so all understand the rules. Once again, President Reagan's quote, "The most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help." In 2008, medical marijuana laws were put into place. Commissioner Carlton, correct me if I'm wrong, you authored or co-authored the bill and also voted yes on it. At our last meeting, the government is now handing out lockboxes to adults to keep recreational marijuana and drugs locked up from children. Medical marijuana was the foot in the door for the marijuana industry. It needs to grow their industry. The banking industry still cannot accept money from the industry as it violates federal law. Commissioner Carlton was at 2 township meetings that I attended last Wednesday, talking about this lockbox and how he had a neighbor that the neighbor's gummies got into, or the neighbor's dog got into his gummies. So naturally, Commissioner Carlton said, I gave him a lockbox. I'm not sure if that was a true intent, but the thing is that government, when they come in and start putting things in place without full review and looking at the future, is the problem instead of the solution. So once again, I'm from the government and I'm here to help is a relative statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Additional public comment?
can I respond?
If you'd like to respond briefly.
Well, I just want to say, Gary has the absolute right to say what he really wants to say, and I have the right to not say what I really want to say.
Additional public comment?
Larry Bass, Carlton Township. A couple things that were said earlier. Number one, we do have a right to agree or disagree in public comments in this forum. However, last week, there's a comment made that threw an organization under the bus, which I didn't think we were supposed to do in these public comment sessions. I'm a proud Republican. I'm a proud conservative. I've been on the executive committee for more than a decade for the Republican Party and been a precinct delegate for more than a decade, too. So when you castigate Republicans for doing something and bullying, you're also throwing me under the bus. And I don't appreciate that at all, because I don't ever recall bullying anybody on the Board of Commissioners one time. Secondarily, I would wish if you folks that are on the Health Board, I would suggest, and I mentioned this with Bob earlier, you should probably read the Open Meetings Act and carrying a line of conversation. I tried to find the board rules for the Board of Commissioners online, and Catherine will probably have to correct me on this again, but I could not find them. So if they're online, I would love to have somebody point them out to me. So in case the discussion needs to happen on Friday, it can happen. Also, I have a question. I'd like to raise a hand, which is not going to happen. How many of you commissioners approached one of our 4 elected representatives prior to the budget being passed this year about seeking a bond for the Barry County Jail? The reason I'm asking, and bond is probably not the proper word, but seeing I don't have much of a life, I was going through the budget. And you know, Macomb County was allocated $40 million for a jail in this last budget that was just passed. So I find it totally irresponsible our 4 representatives if they didn't ask for that, and the Board of Commissioners if they didn't follow through in insisting that one of them ask for money in the budget for our jail that we desperately need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. I'll have some other comments on that during commissioner comments. Additional public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead with our agenda. Various correspondence. Does any commissioner have correspondence they'd like to share with the board? Hearing none, consent agenda. Commissioner Doster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the following consent items. A, approval of the November 28th, 2023 Board of Commissioner meeting minutes. B, approval of December 5th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. C, approval to submit the attached 2024 grant application to the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, LARA, Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulation for the Berry County Substance Abuse Task Force to conduct education, communication, and outreach regarding Michigan Medical Marijuana Act in Berry County. D, approval of net cost agreement for substance use disorder services, SUD, through Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health Regional Entity, SWMBA, for fiscal year 2024, and authorization for the board chairperson to sign the agreement. F, approval of the proposal for medical examiner services submitted by Western Michigan University Homer Stryker Medical School of Medicine Department of Pathology to provide medical examiner services for the period of January 1st, 2024 through December 31st of 2027, including the appointment of Dr. Patrick Hansma, osteopathic doctor, as the Berry County Medical Examiner.
Is there support? Support. Motion by Doster, support by Hatfield for all items listed on the consent agenda. Discussion is not allowed and a roll call vote is required. All those in favor vote aye, opposed vote nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Colton.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Doster.
Aye.
Getty. Aye. Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Tunison.
Aye.
Hatfield.
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved. Presentations, we have Employee Service Awards this morning. If I'd like to. Is Michael Hanger here this morning?
Yes, sir.
Michael. On behalf of Berry County, I see that you have 5 years of service. In the Sheriff's Office as a master mechanic, we'd like to present you with this certificate for your service and appreciation from the entire Board of Commissioners and all the employees of Berry County.
All right, thank you very much.
Sheriff Leaf, would you like to add anything to that?
Other than his cartoon character voice, but he's the one that keeps our cars on the road. And when we get the cars, they're just a basic car. He's the one that puts all the equipment in them and gets them working properly. And appreciate you doing that. You do an excellent job at it. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a great day. Carrie Selleck with us this morning? Good morning.
Morning.
Carrie, you have had an interesting career forming this whole office, taking this under your wing, creating a very vibrant staff, and kind of figuring out all the Michigan laws and how to make this thing work. So it's been, what, a 5-year process now?
It has been.
Or longer?
Still evolving.
So we've continued to see this and see the budgets and see everything going on, and you've done a fantastic job leading that office.
Thank you.
Developing that to a place where we can be very proud and confident of what's being created here in Berry County with our indigent defense. Just fantastic. So with this, we'd like to congratulate you for 5 years of service in that position. Anything you'd like to add, feel free.
We have a great group of attorneys here, not only contract attorneys, but also Mr. Renner, who is the attorney in our office, and none of us would function without Roberta Kraus, who keeps our office running, does all our budgeting and our grants, and keeps us on task. So it's not me, it's actually a group effort, and we are all doing our best and still learning and still growing, but we're happy to be here, and I think we're doing a good job for Berry County. So
Awesome. On behalf of a grateful county, we say thank you for your work and your effort, and your staff.
Thank you.
Is Caitlin Hall here? I know that we have several people from the Friend of the Court, and they had a training today, so Caitlin Hall, 10 years with Central Dispatch. Carrie Eisner, she's a caseworker and mediator with Friend of the Court for 5 years. Rebecca Hawkins, a staff attorney for Friend of the Court for 10 years. Jennifer Heibel, caseworker and mediator for Friend of the Court for 15 years. And Kelsey Staines, a senior account clerk for Friend of the Court for 5 years. So we have several people to recognize. We'll have these delivered to the department heads to give them some congratulations as well. So let's give, even though they couldn't be here, let's give them some applause as well. Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. Items for consideration, Commissioner Smelker.
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of prepaid invoices in the amount of $4,814,502.74.
Is there support?
Support.
Campbell.
Motion by Smelker, support by Calton for approval of prepaid invoices in the amount of $4,814,502.74. Is there additional discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Colton.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
I move for the approval of claims in the amount of $42,351.78.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Tunison for approval of claims in the amount of $42,351.78. Discussion. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Colton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
I move for approval of commissioner reimbursement mileage in the amount of $1,172.45.
Is there support?
Support. Campbell.
Motion by Smelker, support by Campbell for approval of commissioner reimbursement mileage in the amount of $1,170.45. Discussion. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Colton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
I move for adoption of Resolution 23-27 to authorize the auditor to transfer 2023 general fund surplus funds to various internal service funds.
There's support.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Getty for adoption of Resolution 23-27 to authorize the auditor to transfer 2023 general fund surplus funds to various internal service funds. Discussion. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Colton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye. The motion is approved.
I move for adoption of Resolution 23-28 to authorize auditors to make final year-end transfers.
Is there support?
Support. Doster.
Motion by Smelker, support by Doster for adoption of Resolution 23-28 to authorize the auditor to make final year-end transfers. Discussion. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Smelker,
Aye.
Tunison,
Aye.
Colton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield, Jackson,
Aye. The motion is approved. Item E from the consent agenda.
I move for approval of the agreement for economic development services between Berry County and the Berry County Chamber and Economic Development Alliance for the period January 1, 2024 through December 31, 2024.
Is there support?
Support. Hatfield.
Motion by Smelker, support by Hatfield for approval of the agreement for economic development services between Berry County and Berry County Chamber and Economic Development Alliance for a period January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. Discussion?
You say 2025 or 2024?
24.
Oh, I'm sorry. Period of January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. Correction. Discussion. Mr. White?
Okay, this isn't what I had asked about the contract, right? This is the contract part?
Economic Development Services, yes.
Okay.
All right, this is going to be relatively short. In the contract, it says that a final report is supposed to be done. I believe that it's the responsibility of all commissioners to make sure that the metrics are reviewed before a contract comes into place. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure if this is the right spot, but if you're looking to make a new contract with economic development, they should have the metrics to see if your districts were represented or not. So as I said, I'm looking at E. So am I in the right spot or not? This isn't the contract, this is just a authorization to make final.
Is this a contract we do every year? Mr. Chair, is this a contract we do annually?
Annual renewal of our agreement with,
So it just comes down to, if you haven't had the final report from the Economic Development Berry County Chamber, then you should not be approving a contract until you see what the metrics are for your districts. Because you want all of Berry County represented. That's the only reason I, wanted this, brought up in there. Okay? Thank you.
Well, Vice Chair Hatfield, you're on that. I mean, they represent.
Well, as I commented last week, both Chairman Jackson and myself are on the board. Commissioner Getty is also on several of their committees, and I know a number of you attended the Economic Development Forum about a month ago where an annual report was given. Jennifer Heinzman, the president, would like very much to come in and speak about their activities. It did not work to get that on the agenda for this month, but at least my impression, and I think Chairman Jackson would share that, is that we have come a long way toward making this truly a county-wide initiative promoting economic development, not to mention the fact that there have been millions of dollars of grant money brought into many areas of the county to support ongoing economic development activities, not just by the chamber, but by the communities themselves.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. In the past, it seems like the Chamber and Economic Development has been focused primarily on Hastings. Jennifer has done a tremendous job of outreach to Nashville and Delton, some of the outlying areas, and involving them more so than anybody else in that position. So, but we'll be more than happy to get her in here and do that. We do evaluate Jennifer's performance on a yearly basis for a review, and she's always come in with outstanding marks for what she's been doing. So I don't know how she spins all the plates she does, but she does a fantastic job. So.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
I have noticed on the 10, 12 years I've been on here, there is some districts that some years get nothing, but in the next year, they may get the majority. So it doesn't always go year by year, it's spread out. Be some years people get more than other years, so. I hate to say it, I thought a little bit like Gary when I first come on. And the economic development does spread out their works and do a fine job of it, so, all I got to say.
Okay.
And
David?
the only thing else I'd add to that, I would certainly agree with Commissioner Smelker, but also, economic development activities, while they may occur in one district or a specific grant may go to one district, economic development has a very broad impact on our community. And I think that what we're seeing there is an effort to spread the specific activities, but irrespective of how that works, it's for the betterment of the county.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Colton?
I've always been sensitive to is Nashville and Woodland getting, say, their fair share of really anything from transit to, economic development. But I was just at a meeting this last week. Economic development was there. We were in Woodland, a meeting with DTE for what's going to be a very exciting project. So the wraps will come off of that in the next couple of months or weeks even.
Thank you. Thank you. Additional discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Tunison,
Aye.
Colton,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Doster,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Item G from the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move approval to pay out 80 hours of lost vacation time for the year 2022 and allow a carryover of all excess vacation hours for the year 2023 for the Deputy County Administrator due to staffing shortages.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Getty for approval to pay out 80 hours of lost vacation time for the year 2022 and allow carryover of all excess vacation hours for the year 2023 for Deputy County Administrator due to staffing shortages. Discussion. Gary.
Is this on? Okay. The request for payout for 2022 lost vacation time has got to be one of the most egregious agenda requests I've ever seen, coming from the county administrator for the deputy county administrator. Number one, the request comes with no funding required. Why did the county administrator put funding in the budget for lost 2022 vacation time? Number two, a yes on funding required requires the answer to 5 questions. Funding source. Number one, funding source. Number two, if local, specify source. Number three, amount requested. You don't even know what the amount requested is. Number four, amount of ongoing costs and the interval of it. It was stated by your county administrator last week that 2024 doesn't look no better. 2023, you don't even know how many hours in excess of 80 are being carried over. So you haven't done your homework to even review this. Then the number 5 is financial impact on other departments. Clearly, but not wanting to answer those questions, a Pandora box exists. It undermines future administrators and commissioners' ability to negotiate contracts. The board has the oversight authority of county policies and all departments. The deputy administrator elected to disregard county policy and forgo the time off afforded by county policy. To nonchalantly pass this request without a complete review of the issues that is now going on year 3 with no documented solution would be a dereliction of your elected duties and a failure to identify the issue. The county administrator during the employee raise proposal stated, in general, Berry County staffing problems are probably his fault. And the board ignored his statement. None of you folks, well, please elaborate on how the staffing problems are your fault. But now, as I said, you have county administrator that has 4 in that, personnel total, and it added there. But what kind of Pandora's box are you opening up if you don't review and find out why the request for 2022 funds has never been done before, I cannot believe, and should not even be considered, just like you're considering excess hours of 80 in 2023. If this was a real request, it should have came at the end, not at your expense as commissioners, but at the last commissioners. As I said, if you read, it is an annual thing. It's not a biannual thing. It's not, well, 5 years ago I lost hours. So a complete review before even thinking about passing this, and it probably needs to be some type of independent review. It has been said in the past that people are dedicated. People are passionate. This is something that, as I said, reflects problems in future commissioners, future administrators, that you can't just ignore and simply say, okay, let's pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, I don't know if you have any input or anything you want to add. I wasn't here last week. I did listen to the meeting. I thought it was well discussed and debated among this board. So I don't know if any commissioners have any additional input they want to add on that.
I'd like to say a couple things. I mean, I do realize we're setting kind of precedent here. So, you know, there's a lot of department heads here that make sure their employees that are underneath them have their vacations. And I know that they will work through maybe if they're going to take a vacation. So, I mean, I'm assuming there probably is some carryover year to year from department heads or other people. But I don't know, like Michael has assured us, it's not a widespread problem. But I'm assured that the department heads are very dedicated and they make sure that their people, when their vacations are coming up, that they make sure they'll work through and not take their vacation. So I will say that.
Additional discussion?
I guess I have to say about this that we transferred the resources and check writing and stuff upstairs into administrator's office. It was downstairs when Karen Barnes retired. I believe some of the people that find a lot of fault have no idea, none of what them people do and how much work that was. And we do up here. And I personally disagree with it, with the statements up here, and I think this is well deserved. And what we could do is hire 2 people to put in that office, but that would cost us more than 80 hours overtime or vacation time. I think there should more thoughts go into the discussion before they come up.
I concur. Working closely with Michael, off and on over the last 8 years, I see the amount of things that office takes on and the problems they have to solve on a regular basis up there, and the things that come at them is pretty daunting at times. I mean, the budget is the main responsibility, but yet we see that we have an amazing credit rating. Our OPEB is probably the only county in the state that it's actually a benefit. It's in the plus column, that they do some amazing things in an office. And as it was stated that, to Michael's fault, because other departments are requesting personnel and we're running a tight ship, that he's choosing to do without and not set the precedence where he's saying yes to his department and no to other departments. I see that there's an opportunity here that we need to think about this more broadly. It's good that this has come up. It's good to have these discussions, and it's good to have input from the public on this. One of the things that we're going to talk about, I don't know if it'll be on next week's agenda or if it'll be on the first cow of 2024, is a personnel committee that can actually look in detail at, peel the onion back and look at some of these things, some of the personnel questions and some of the personnel issues, so we can navigate this in the future. As you're all aware, we have several retirements coming up. I just think that it's a good time, and there's a need to have a smaller, more thorough investigation and research on some of these issues that Michael could be involved in, different department heads can have input on, and we can try to solve personnel committees or personnel issues, either staffing, pay, whatever the case is, going forward, to look at this thoroughly and fairly for all departments. Because Michael's trying to make a decision, like you said, to not overstaff or staff his office, but turn down other things. And I think maybe that needs to be beyond him, where we can look at this and really see where the resources of the county would be best invested at that point. So there'll be more coming on this. I do feel this request has been well documented after listening to the discussion. It was well discussed. I appreciate Mr. White's input on this, but I'm going to vote in favor of this at this point. Additional discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say that, you know, we've got an employee here that has went well above and beyond the normal duties of what's expected of an employee. And we're actually going to discuss whether to give her due time that she lost because she was trying to support our county. It just would be ridiculous to vote no on this.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Colton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Aye.
Doster. Getty.
Aye.
Hatfield.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Tunison.
Aye.
Jackson.
The motion is approved. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, we have none. County Administrator's report? Chairperson's report, I am all set as well. Vice Chairperson's report.
Likewise. Thank you.
Commissioner reports, Commissioner Tunison.
Went to Calton last night. A lot of discussion on the future of Birch. I think they want to try to keep the Birch Fire Department board intact. They're going to make try to invest more in the future for equipment. That was one thing lacking over the past maybe 10 years, that they just paid less than $1 million, and they're going to raise it to 1.25 million and build up their equipment fund for future. And that was a lot of the discussion last night, and just typical board stuff. But I attended the Birch meeting last Thursday, and it was very interesting to listen to the future of the Hastings and the Birch, 4 different, and the city making a new way forward with a new chief and everything. So it was interesting to listen to.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
I'll be visiting Johnstown on Wednesday this week, and Friday we have our health department meeting. Last month it was canceled due to not having enough for quorum. So we have a lot going on at that meeting, and would ask everybody please stop by and see what's going on with your health department. That's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Smelker?
I attended Thornapple last night. There was a report on Second Amendment resolution. I will go to Irving tonight. And Mr. Tunison and I made a trip to Lansing for the MAC Policy Summit, and I was there for the juvenile justice part, and they're talking of making some changes there. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Getty?
No report.
Commissioner Colton?
In Castleton Township, not this month, but the month before, they actually passed their own township levels solar panel ordinance. Then there was some discussion at Maple Grove about something like that. A group came mainly from the Republican Party to discuss that. I got Woodland Township night. Woodland Village was last night, and Thursday is the Village in Asheville.
Thank you. Commissioner Doster?
I have nothing.
Okay. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
It appears as we get further into this that the cow has little to no value. Now we want to have another committee built. We had a committee for COA built. We had a committee built at the last commissioner's authority or for building. Now we're going to build a personnel committee, but there's very little information that is done at the cow except for, well, let's just put it on the consent agenda and we'll just pass it. So the structure here is broken. I don't know how you can say it's not when you're saying, well, we got to keep on adding these committees. When I hear that the pay, vacation pay, was well debated, and, can anybody here that approved this tell me what the dollar amount is that you just approved to be paid out? What year it's going to be paid out in, 22, 23, 24? Can anybody here tell me what the excess number of vacation hours are that you just approved? It's been so well presented, I don't think you can answer either one of those questions, can you? I haven't seen it in the packet as I look at the packets. And once again, as I said at the beginning, dedicated and service, that's always the motivation. It's an emotional instead of a business vote here quite often, because we know people or we get in relationships with people. I'm not saying everything is bad, but when you have things that are not well thought out, well presented, that you don't have the answers to, you need to research it, review it. Did I know that that the payroll went to the administration? Yeah. Well, apparently there wasn't a good plan in place to have that transfer. But there's also staffing that went with that or was hired for that. There's other staffing. So do I know everything? No, I'm not saying I do. But what I'm saying, you as commissioners need to know what you're passing, and I don't believe you did. And this isn't the first time. As I said, your cow is a failure in structure, and just needs, it's a waste of a lot of people's time, including employees and your own. So you need to revamp what and how you do business and get a structure that actually works for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Larry Bass, still in Carlton Township. 2023 was kind of a bad year for me. I made a second mistake this year in addressing you guys earlier. That's $40 million in grant money, not bond money that went to Macomb County for their jail. Also, at the risk of getting assassinated, when I walked back over to my chair, having, in my professional career, having supervised up to 130 employees, either directly or indirectly, I many times allowed employees to carry over vacation. As a manager and a director, I thought that was the best thing I could do to reward them for giving up their vacation time to do what has to be done. So that's enough of that. Excuse me. Question. Did Berry County get any grant money in the budget, in the state budget? Does anybody know? Okay. Maybe you guys can answer that a little bit later. There's a two seat majority in both the state house and the state senate. Okay, there was $1.6 billion in earmarks, the one in the last budget. And this is for information only, folks. 90% of those, and Commissioner Colton is probably very familiar with this, 90% of those went into democratically controlled areas. Okay, only 10% went to areas that were controlled by Republicans. I find that exceptionally egregious. There's probably nothing we can do about it. But I think my attitude's always been I'd rather fight and lose than sit on my hands and get knocked down again. Really, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Larry. Additional public comment?
Morning, Joel Ibbotson, Rutland Township. I want to talk to you guys about a man who was instrumental in the civil rights movement. Not Martin Luther King Jr., but the person Martin Luther King Jr. referred to as the most courageous civil rights leader in the South. He was known as Pastor Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, and he went out of his ways to test the laws, to test the Constitution, to make sure that the Constitution overrode bad laws. When the organization he was instrumental in founding heard that segregated busing was ruled unconstitutional in the Supreme Court in 1956, he took it upon himself to immediately challenge the buses that were still doing a segregated writing. He became a target very early in his life for extremist groups such as the KKK. And Christmas Day in '56, someone put 16 sticks of dynamite outside his bedroom window. When they exploded it, his mattress took most of the shrapnel and he escaped unharmed. He went on to say that if God wasn't done with him, that he wouldn't have made him bomb-proof. It wasn't much farther along. He was beaten with chains and brass knuckles, and his wife was stabbed. Shuttlesworth drove himself and his wife to the hospital, and the staff couldn't believe that he'd actually made it there alive. And when asked about the attack, he said if God wasn't done with him yet, that God wouldn't have made his head so thick. And it wasn't much longer than that, after that the church he was pastoring became bombed as well. And thanks to the eyes and quick warning from another member, he was escaped that blast without injury. Yet in spite of all of this, the message he had for his children was always to forgive. When asked about how he was delivered through all the attempts on his life, he stated, well, God just brought the Bible up to date. You don't have to go back to Daniel in the lion's den or the boys of the fiery furnace. Shuttlesworth was arrested under Birmingham's ordinance and convicted. However, he fought his convictions all the way up to the Supreme Court, where it was overturned. The opinion of the High Court reads as follows: a law subjecting the right of free expression in publicly owned places to the prior restraint of a license without narrow objective and definite standards is unconstitutional, and the person faced with such a law may ignore it and exercise his First Amendment rights. These powerful words state unconstitutional ordinances can be ignored with impunity. However, it does take a person of great boldness and resolve to defy these unconstitutional laws. He started peacefully fighting for civil rights years before the marches that MLK was known for, and I find it a shame that history has not remembered Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth the way that the current generation has propped up individuals who has been labeled as brave or courageous. In fact, they want to categorize men such as a football player with a $20 million net worth who bent a knee during the national anthem as brave and courageous. That takes away from the people who really were. I want to finish, if I can, real quick. Next time I want to talk about James Madison, and please discuss with the Sheriff's Office about deputy and correction officers' pay, retirement age. We just lost another good deputy to Camp PD. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Additional public comment?
Hey, Dave, can I ask one more question? I apologize, I got some time left. Has there been any progress on getting an ordinance for wind and solar farms from the county?
We're working on it.
Okay, so when do you anticipate that'll be done?
Let me address that under commissioner comments. Without any limited public comment, commissioner comments. Commissioner Doster?
Nothing further.
Commissioner Colton? Commissioner Getty?
No.
Commissioner Smelker?
Oh, of course. Larry, I don't know if you remember this or not, but you and I have had conversations about getting grants for jails. And in our convention in Lansing, we sat and the commissioners that were there sat and met with Angela Regas and Gina Johnson. Rachel couldn't make it, and I've had meetings with Thomas Alberts. And they done what they could, but you know the situation in Lansing.
In the budget, they did what they could.
No. The answer to your question was yes, we have. All of us at that convention sat with our representatives.
I'm from Missouri on that one.
Commissioner Hatfield?
Nothing further.
Commissioner Campbell?
I'd just like to comment a little bit on the meeting that the Health Department did hold. There's been a lot of discussion on that. That meeting was not a scheduled makeup meeting for the one that got canceled. I know that some thought that it was. It was not. It was an informal hearing, a step in the violation process of a restaurant owner up by Lansing. They did get legal advice on it when it took place, before it took place, that it was an informal hearing, and the legal advice was that, and this is not my comment, the legal advice was that they did not have to put that on the agenda as a public comment on the agenda, because it was an informal hearing, one item, and it was violations that had continued, and they were looking to the commissioners to decide whether we were going to pull the license or give them more time, and that's what the meeting was about. I just want everybody to know that's what the meeting was. It was not a makeup meeting for the canceled Health Department meeting.
Commissioner Tunis?
Yeah, and so Commissioner Smelker and I did attend that MAC conference. One thing that they're a little concerned about is that there's a movement out there called Axe the Tax, which would go on the ballot if they get 250,000 signatures to actually get rid of property taxes. And MAC is very concerned about that. What it would do to the counties, because everything would have to go through the state, and then I'm sure Commissioner Calton could address that a little bit, but the other thing John and I went there for was the septic code. They're trying to get a statewide septic code that basically would require every 5 years to be basically a mandatory inspection on your septic system. They want to be very aggressive on this. They think there's like 1.4 million in the state of Michigan that would need to be inspected. So they need to do 280,000 per year for 5 years, which I can only imagine how you would have to grow the health department to do that. And the invasion of, I just don't know if that's necessary to do that, go that far. The cost alone, $1,000 just for the inspection, let alone the mandatory pump of anywhere from $400 probably or more. And when something's mandated, I worry that the cost is just going to go up. So I just don't know how this is going to work. There's not enough excavators, there's not enough, and if they deem your system be failed, the numbers that John and I saw there were just astronomical. Up to $50,000 for a raised system was, I thought, people can't afford this. They just can't afford, on top of everything in their life that's gone up, on top of that, and then you're going to put another cost on there that might not be necessary. I just think is over the top. So that's my take on it, what I got out of it. And John can say I was a little vocal over there.
I didn't have to say anything. Bob said it all.
Yeah, and as being on the health department board for 6 years, I know that Michigan is the only state that doesn't have a state health code. States like Wisconsin have had 5-year inspections for septics for a long time. This has been something that's continued to roll through time and time again in Lansing and has not had the votes to go through, but they haven't had the power that they've had in Lansing for quite a while either, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But I appreciate you guys attending that and giving an update on that. And just to piggyback on what John said, when we were at the MAC conference, I had conversations with all 3 of our state reps. I know Sheriff Leaf was also involved in that and providing information from the prior jail plan from 5+ years ago and some details on what we were looking to build. So we had several conversations with our state reps on trying to get a budget appropriation or some help for the jail, and we'll continue with that. It's just like you said, we're not quite in favor. As you pointed out, Larry, 1.6 billion with 90% of it going to Democratic controlled areas. Doesn't seem like that's in our favor going forward. As far as the solar and wind ordinance goes, we've had conversations with Michael Brown, with Jim McManus. We've looked at several ordinance that are existing right now. We've got one that's been recommended from the attorney. I've been gone for a couple weeks, but it's a matter of blending ordinances with what the state wants, because if you know what the law says, it's basically, as long as your ordinance isn't more restrictive than what the state's ordinance is, then you're okay, which doesn't really give us any leeway. So we're continuing to talk to MAC, looking for other legal options as well to see if there's going to be any legal challenges to this as well, as far as what's going forward. So we're keeping eyes, ears open, as well as working, I wouldn't say we're working a legal angle, but we're talking to people who have those angles just to get all the input we can. This is a year out from the state's implementation of it, but we're trying to work through this and see what's best for our county, what we can and can't do. Does it make sense to put in an ordinance that we have basically no control over or no say over? Or do we put an ordinance in place that's more restrictive for the next 12 months to have it squashed and have to be rethought down the road? So there's some things that this board's going to have to look at. Probably we'll have some deeper discussions, both legally and probably either a workshop or some board education on this as well going forward. But that'll all be coming in the first quarter of next year. So we've got to, we're keeping eyes on this and moving forward with this. So this isn't something that's going away. We know that. It's got to be addressed. So thank you. Without any other comments, we will.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I just comment slightly on what you just spoke? Because the ordinance is out, and our area for the solars is of big concern. Although an ordinance that we might put together as a county may have some stipulations, setbacks maybe a little farther than what the state recognizes. Although they have no legal bite, they do have a moral implication that I know, talking with some of the consumers people, that they really are trying to appease the townships. So I think it would be a failure if we don't put in there, even if it has no legal binding, morally, some of the people that come in that are trying to do these things would do that just for the sake of cooperation with the county and to be viewed on favorably in the county.
I think it's fair that we put our expectations in there, even if they can't be legally binding, that we can put in what we expect from a partnership going forward on this, as far as certainly for screening and setbacks and things. I have viewed the site over off of I-69 and saw that there is very little screening, and it's not representative of what we are going to allow in Berry County. We don't know what we can and can't do yet, but we're certainly, this is something that's not going away, and we're going to continue to work on it. So, but I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just a comment. Even though they say our ordinance that we developed cannot be more restrictive than the state's ordinance, what it does, it would put the ball in our court, where the application would come to us first, and then you can negotiate some things with, say, consumers or DT or any other energy companies. So it would, to at least some extent, give a little bit of local control that's been taken away from us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at this point in talking, and I know several of us have had conversations with Greg Moore from Consumers. I don't know that Consumers is, they're trying to be a good neighbor. They're talking to landowners and property owners and very open to work through screening and the process. It's not Consumers that I'm worried about so much, but in the future, as we look at more farmland being taken over in other parts of the county as well, wherever there's transmission lines, you know, a farmer could sell property to another entity. Other solar entities could come in that are not Consumers. there's just a lot of other things to consider past this one transaction that we have to think through. So we're not, like I said, Consumers has been a good partner to work with on this, and they're really doing some due diligence and education with us. We don't know where it's going to end up yet, but I'm not as concerned about someone that's so willing to be a good partner as somebody who does something like they did on I-69 and doesn't want to do screening and doesn't want to abide by setbacks. And so I haven't dissected the entire state code yet, but that's something we're working on. But good input, thank you.
Mr. Chair, one follow-up on that. What about, can we put in some type of ordinance that, like, Johnstown, for God's sakes, can't get overrun? Can we put a percentage per township, per something to try to, in our code? I didn't know. I'm just asking the question.
We'll have board education on that, and we'll get more in depth with that and go through that process as it is. But so, it's commissioner comment time, sir. We do give you quite a bit of leeway, so, but I always appreciate your comments.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if this is helpful, but there are a number of townships that have their independent planning and zoning. Prairieville Township is one of them. They've had a wind and solar ordinance both for a significant period of time. Generally, we try to look to the county to make similar ordinances. The county didn't have one, so Prairieville has an expert, Rebecca Harvey, who has appeared here before the board. She was instrumental in the master plan. It's generally helpful to have ordinances that are similar or identical across the county, so that it isn't just affecting 36 square miles and then you go across the street and you have totally different rules. And it might be a benefit for the county's planning and zoning to look at Prairieville's examples to see whether that is something they could more readily adopt in a short-term run, at least, and then see if that would work for you. Could get something in effect a lot sooner than having to start in reinventing the wheel on something like that. Was just a thought.
Yeah, solar's been in other parts of the country forever, so there's a lot of ordinances and a lot of precedents set. We just have to figure out how to fit it into Berry County that best preserves what we appreciate about Berry County, which is our open space, farmland, hunting property. So, but thank you, commissioners. Good input. Without any further discussion, we are adjourned.